Yep, good evening everyone. Thank you very much for turning up at the Phantom event at ETH Denver. Really appreciate you all being here tonight. Loving the audience turnout, and I know a lot of people are very interested about the future of Phantom, particularly given what has happened in the past, and also about what our latest technology and our latest offerings to builders are going to be. So tonight's presentation is to give you guys an overview as to what this Sonic technology is, just an overview, and also about some of the real benefits that the Sonic technology will give to builders and why you should build a Phantom. But we're also going to drop a little bit of alpha, I guess, as you want to call it, which is talking about a few business development initiatives that I know Phantom has been lacking kind of in the past, but what people are looking for. And ultimately, we want to give what people want, right? We want to give the community what they want, and we want to give builders what they want. And we listen very, very closely to the community, particularly the large token holders and big protocols that exist on the network. So in terms of what builders want, I think it really comes down to two fundamental things, right? First, you need to have great technology, because the builders obviously need to be able to build on the network that is scalable, that has low transaction fees, that isn't going to go down repeatedly, that they can rely on, and that can acquire large numbers of users that have low confirmation times. In other words, so when people submit transactions to your application, it just goes through very, very smoothly, and so it's a very smooth process. But also, there needs to be the right incentives to get builders and users on the network as well, so they know that when they interact with your application, that isn't just about things being fast and things looking nice and slick, but also that they get a real tangible benefit out of it. And that is something that we have been kind of lacking in the past, as I've acknowledged before at the start of the presentation, and something I'll be talking about a little bit further on. So build it within the Phantom ecosystem. I just want to first give an overview as to the sort of BD initiatives that we have currently, and a bit about what's coming down in the future as well. So gas monetization, as you guys are aware about, on the Phantom network, if you get a certain number of transactions on the network, you'll be able to qualify for the gas monetization program. And it's very similar to how YouTube does monetization, how other social media platforms do monetization, which is you get a percentage of the transaction fees that your application generates. Right now, it's at a 15%, but we've been talking to a lot of people in the community about making that a lot better. And so I know previously, some Phantom Foundation members have talked about doubling that to 30%. Well, the first bit of news is that for selected applications on Phantom, we'll be dramatically increasing that from 30%. So it won't just be at doubling it to 30%, but it'll be a lot higher than that, because we believe that this will help builders want to join and develop more on Phantom, because they get more of the rewards for the users that they bring to the platform itself. Sonic Labs, as you guys are already aware about, a couple of weeks ago or so, we announced the Sonic Lab winners. And these were select 5 participants that received proportionally 1 million FTM, which is a few $100,000 at the current prices, and also, importantly, direct mentorship through certain individuals at the foundation, including most prominently Andre Cronje, which I'm sure all of you in the audience are aware about. And so we're really excited about these 5 winners, because I think they've shown applications that are kind of unique, that don't already kind of exist on Phantom, and that have the potential to grow a lot. And getting mentorship, particularly from someone like Andre, if you're running a DeFi application, but also from our legal counsel and others at the foundation, I think can go a long way in helping growing you develop your project to be really successful on Phantom. Because if builders are successful on Phantom, then the network is successful. Because in the end, what matters to the Phantom ecosystem is that the builders and the users want to use it, generate large numbers of transactions, and that means we've done our job about building a successful network out there. As you guys are aware of, we have a lot of tooling partners on the network, including some of the biggest tooling protocols that are out there. So we have Pyth, who are attending this event and have done an interview with us as well. We've also had Gelato, we also have had Covalent, we have integrations with Morales, Chainlink, and many others. And there's going to be additional tooling partners that are coming to our network that we're discussing with, because obviously builders need to have great tools to build what they want to build. And so we've listened to the community, and we're going to deliver more of that coming up. One thing that I want to highlight today that we haven't really highlighted before is two things that I think are very important. A lot of people have asked us, what about canonical stablecoins, right? Because you need to have a canonical stablecoin that the foundation says, this is a stablecoin that we want to use for the network. Because right now we've got an issue with Phantom where we don't have like a dedicated stablecoin. We have a few stablecoin providers out there, which is great, but there's a lot of liquidity fragmentation and a lot of difficulties in trying to use those stablecoins. And so we've listened to the community, and we've been working very hard over the past couple of months about nailing down a canonical stablecoin for the Phantom ecosystem. So there will be news coming out in the next few weeks about the canonical stablecoin on Phantom and how it would work. And I think this is something that will solve a lot of people's issues, a lot of builders, particularly when it comes to DeFi. Another thing that people have asked about is, because they've seen a lot of activity around it, about airdrops and incentives. And what is Phantom going to do about it, if anything? Well, I have an exciting announcement, which is that the Phantom ecosystem will be having an airdrop campaign for the entire ecosystem. So not just for a particular application or a particular type of application, but for the Phantom ecosystem as a whole. And there'll be details announced in the next coming weeks. In addition to that, we are going to have liquidity incentives for certain applications on the network to encourage them to build and build greater on Phantom. So a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, there'll be a lot more details in the future, but I just want to emphasize that we've listened to what some of the key people in the community have talked to us about in terms of feedback and in terms of helping us grow the Phantom ecosystem. And this is what we're going to go for, as well as many other initiatives that are yet to be announced. Now, I want to talk about the new technology we've got coming out for Phantom, which I think it will make it a lot easier for developers and node providers to launch on the Phantom ecosystem. So just to give you guys an overview about the Sonic technology, and I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with Sonic and what it is and how it's going to make things better. But just to sum up what it actually is, it's kind of like a free tier technology change. So we've changed the way that the database works for Phantom. So we've been able to minimize how much storage is required for what we call the RPC or the archival nodes and the validator nodes. And also by changing the database, we've been able to significantly speed up the amount of transactions that can be processed by the network, while also minimizing the confirmation times. So usually there's a trade-off between security and decentralization and confirmation times and how performant your network is. And so we've kind of optimized the trade-off. We've also developed a new virtual machine called the Phantom Virtual Machine that just makes executing smart contracts a lot faster. And we've also optimized our current Opera client to become the new Sonic client. And so there have been many technical changes with the way that nodes communicate with one another. I won't get into all the details, but it just makes it for a much better experience. So it's just a lot cheaper to run a node. It's a lot faster to sync up a node. It's a lot easier to you can take advantage of lower time to finality and a much more scalable network. So those sorts of bottlenecks that we've had in the past basically won't exist anymore in the future, or the risk of that happening is much, much lower. So just to emphasize the results that we've had at the moment in our tested environment, which mimics basically the way that the current Phantom Opera works, we've been able to process 2,000 transactions per second. And this isn't just some made up number that we've just come up with because it sounds big and nice, right? It's a number that is actually empirically proven by all of the technology we've developed, and it's actually put into practice. So people can go to our Sonic testnet, they can see the 2,000 transactions that are being processed per second. They can see the blocks being created, they can see the transaction details, they can see all of that data. So you guys know that it's real, that we're not just plucking the number out of thin air, that it's something that is actually tangible and out there. And in addition to that, to kind of emphasize how scalable the network is, if you were just processing ERC20 transfers, right, which a lot of applications do, right, particularly DeFi applications, we're actually able to increase the number of transactions fivefold to over 10,000 transactions per second. And I think for a network that gets a lot of traction, that is more than enough for a very long period of time. And we've been able to achieve this with very low finality. So the time to finality, we've been able to process thousands of transactions per second is only about 1 second, which is the current finality for the network. And if you have a lower amount than that, you can lower the time to finality to even 0.4 or 0.5 seconds. So if you would, when we deploy Sonic, given the amount of transactions that the network is processing at the moment, we would be able to basically have a time to finality of less than half of what it is currently. And I think that's an amazing achievement for a network that already has a pretty low confirmation times. Some of the information that I want to highlight is what we published a couple of weeks ago to do with the archival nodes. So these are nodes that have the whole history of the network that are used by RPC providers to basically process requests on the network, right? So the way that you communicate usually with the Phantom network is that you go via this RPC provider that basically routes your request from the application to your network. And these tangible numbers on the Phantom mainnet itself, right? So not just the testnet, from the actual mainnet itself. We've been running Sonic nodes for the past couple of weeks now, and we've been able to achieve these like fantastic results, where we've been able to dramatically decrease the synchronization times, we've been able to dramatically increase the throughput, and such that if you're running a large-scale RPC node providers, say like 20 servers, your costs of running these RPC nodes can go down by up to 96%. And I think that's a remarkable achievement by the technology team. And I think it just makes it, again, far easier for builders or node providers, which are a lot on Phantom, there are thousands, to be able to run nodes so much more easily and so much more cheaply than before. And in addition to that, what our team has recently done is that they've integrated additional software to make the onboarding process for nodes a lot easier. So right now, it requires quite a few complex commands. It's sort of like a bit of a black hole. But with this new interface that we have for launching validators, it'll be a lot easier. It'll be clicking through, in human readable language, how you set it up step by step, and then bam, your validator gets set up very, very quickly. So I think that's also a nice experience from a user experience point of view for node providers. And so why does this all matter, right? Well, as I kind of emphasized before, it really matters because it's about making it easier for people to launch applications on Phantom and for users to use them, right? And that's something that I think is what makes technology so important as a solution. Obviously, it's not the only thing that developers and users look for when they're determining what chain they want to deploy on, but it is a very important aspect to it. And so I think one of our strengths at Phantom has been developing on the technology. There's a lot of new chains coming out, there's a lot of new technologies being developed, but Phantom's technology has been around since the end of 2019. And so through over 4 years of the network running, we've had barely any issues. It's almost virtually been up the entire time, and it's been just processing transactions in and out. And we're enhancing that capability. So when we've had bottleneck issues in the past, even though the network kept running, those bottleneck issues with gas spiking will be a thing of the past. So it'll be a lot easier to run a really popular application on Phantom where you don't have to worry about, what's the gas price going to be tomorrow? Is another popular application going to run on the network that just consumes all the gas? That thing, I believe, will largely be a thing of the past. Thanks everyone for listening to my presentation tonight. Feel free to meet up with me afterwards. I'm here for the next few hours, happy to talk about anything, happy to talk about any of the news that I've just broke here tonight. And again, thank you very much for coming and listening to me.